want to start by extending a very warm welcome to all of you. I haven't had to make too much of an effort because we were registering about 45 degrees Celsius without any effort on that. But before I proceed, I'm going to request my friends from the media, you cannot be blocking and dividing the room into two. देखिए मैं दोबारा नहीं कहूँगा. We have a very distinguished group of invitees here. They are distinguished in many ways, and the cameras can remain, but I think the individual camera persons either relocate to the sides or that's it. Thank you very much. Manisha ji has already done some context setting. This is today the third in a series of events which we are hosting, and I welcome you to our home as the co-host. My friend Rajiv Chandrasekhar has joined me and he will be speaking to you also. But before I invite Rajiv to speak, I just want to make a few points. My submission is that the transformation that is taking place in India, a transformation which is measured in terms of the size of the economy, but more than that, in terms of the technology revolution which is taking place. And most of you present here are either successful, accomplished in some other ways, or you are what I call the youth icons of the new India. So let me start by expressing a heartfelt welcome to all of you. Your role has been instrumental in India becoming the 5th largest economy in the world. I have a namesake who lives in the UK. I don't like to speculate on his age because I think he's growing younger and younger, but he went to the UK many years ago with nothing in his pocket. Today, he's the head of a very big empire. He sent me a message this morning. He says, have you seen the IMF's latest statistics? I had, but I wanted to humor him. I said, no, tell me. He said, India today officially is at 3.95 trillion US dollars, and it is just slightly short of Japan, which is at 4.1 trillion dollars. And he said, we will not find the exchange rates for a little while, but when the exchange rate becomes available. But I'm not merely talking about whom we are inching close to, whom we are going past. The fact of the matter is India is the only one economy in that side which is growing, even at the most conservative estimate, if you were to accept that, at 7% plus. So to make it from the 5th to the 4th and the 3rd largest economy in the world is only a matter of a little time. But it is the quality of the transformation which we are witnessing. A business-friendly environment which has been facilitated by the Modi government. I could name a lot of things which have been done, but I'm not going to take your time because I suspect most of you are even more familiar with them, those things. The PLI scheme, startup emerging from small cities by entrepreneurs from less privileged backgrounds. Would this have been even conceivable 10 years ago? During the previous government's regime, the only criteria required to become successful was connection. I have had the privilege of hosting some of you who are sitting here when we have international visitors. And not me, but when Mr. Gates hears their stories, etc., they are not just icons. You are icons not just in India, you are icons globally. And the technological transformation which is being driven, the entrepreneurial energies which are being released. I have not done a profiling, but I'm only saying this in the context of my notes. We profiled actually which were the success stories in the previous 2 decades before our time, Rajiv, before 2014. And there was always a connection. Somebody knew someone, someone helped. But the kind of success stories we have today, but I'll come to that in a minute. Capital expenditure. That's a very major factor if you have to look at the growth of a large country, populous country like India, 1.4 billion, $4 trillion economy on the way to becoming a $5 and $10 trillion economy. What is the capital expenditure? It has increased 2.57 times from 2013-14, rising from 3.92 lakh crores in 2013-14 to over 10 lakh crores in the interim budget, where it went up by another 11% to 11 crores. So, kahan 3.9 crores and where 11 crores in a period of 10 years? It's going up by 30% every year. Corporate tax has been cut to 15% from 25% for new manufacturing companies. Existing companies' corporate tax reduced from 30 to 22. 41,000 necessary compliances reduced or scrapped. 3,000 plus compliances decriminalized. 1,500 archaic laws replaced. I could go on and on. But I'm going to skip that part and I come to something that continues to fascinate me. Because these are the real success stories. How many unicorns did we have in 2015? 4. In 2018, 8. These are new unicorns coming up. In 2019, 9. In 2020, 10 new unicorns. A whopping 42 new unicorns in 2021. In 2022, we had 21 new unicorns. 2023, we had 13. Total unicorns as of May 2024 is 113. And India ranks third in the number of unicorns, second in total number of startups, and first in new startups. This is the new country. And the people who made it possible, many of you are sitting here. You know, I must say, and this has been a real learning experience, both last Friday, yesterday and today, when we said let us invite the success stories, it was an embarrassment of riches. An embarrassment of riches because no matter which field you look at, there are so many people who've lent their shoulders, contributed to making India what it is today, but more than that, into making India what it is going to be in 2047. There was a young lady here who came and showed me, gave me a booklet on what India is going to be like in 2047. Now there people have actually started applying their minds. That is the change in thinking. That is the change in narrative. I'm going to not deal with the statistics in my own ministry, but many of you come from Gurugram, so let me just give you one statistic. Today, India has the 5th largest urban transport or metro system, but it's only a matter of a few months. We have 945 kilometers of operational metro. We have 900 kilometers currently in different phases of implementation. And when that is done, which I don't think will take more than 2 years or so, we will have the world's 2nd largest metro system in the world, surpassing the United States, which has 1,560 kilometers, and we are at today 945, and we're going to be well past that 1,560 kilometers. Why do I say this? Today, India is not only land of economic opportunity, but connectivity is one of the most important institutional reforms that have been undertaken. I was civil aviation minister during probably the most difficult period, the pandemic. We brought back millions of Indians stranded outside due to the pandemic. We privatized Air India. Today, our hotels are chock-a-block full. Domestic tourism has taken off. Our airports are doing exceptionally well. We are probably the only country in the world where the Indian airlines, I mean Indigo and Air India and Vistara, they're ordering planes. The order runs over 1,000 planes. So you produce economic activity in India and you generate jobs in Boeing and Airbus industries, and this is acknowledged not just by us but by the heads of state and government in those countries. I want to just conclude by drawing attention to Startup India, Atal Innovation Mission, Stand Up India, Digital India, GEM Portal, which alone has provided over rupees 20,000 crores to businesses and startups. The AI mission, National Quantum Mission, Semiconductor Mission, I think my collaborator and friend is more competent and better equipped to talk about those things. But let me also say some of the things that I have been associated with, which I take immense pride. At a time when the world is experiencing turbulence of an unprecedented kind. You know, there was a time when conflicts were dealt through by the United Nations. You had a Security Council, which was the designated agency to make a determination whether there was a threat to international peace and security, and then they could authorize such means necessary, which means force to counter that. Today, nobody goes to the Security Council for any reference, because the Security Council stands paralyzed, because the permanent members of the Security Council are themselves involved in those conflicts. In the midst of all that global turbulence, the Prime Minister hosted the G20. He played unifier in a deeply divided world. And my friend Amitabh Kant, who is the Sherpa, this is how individuals come and play a role. And today, the India standing is not just measured by the fact that you're a $4 trillion economy, you're going to go into a $5 trillion economy. It is measured by the fact that there is a buzz, that there is something happening in India in terms of innovation, entrepreneurial initiatives. New systems are being devised. I was Civil Aviation Minister when we were dealing with the drones. And lo and behold, the first attitude was, no, but you know, we can't allow these drones to overfly these establishments. There are security implications. So I said, karwa lo, vetting karwa lo. The whole country will come out red as red zone, no go. Till one day, we went to the Prime Minister and said, we have a choice. Either we lead the drone revolution and manufacture and use and deploying for social and economic and agricultural development, or, you know, we become importers, etc. General Hasnan is here. We had some of his colleagues yesterday. They showed how India had moved from being a importing, buying set of armed forces, Navy, to being a builders, this thing, to the kind of defense production which has gone up, and the defense exports have gone up from what? 600 crores to what? 20,000 crores and rising. So no matter which part of the society you deal with, our lawyers, this thing, there's economic opportunity. But I think what gives me satisfaction is that all segments of our society are using that to rebuild the country so that they shape the contours and destiny which is rightfully ours. And by 2047, and I'd like to believe, Rajiv, much before that, we will be a Viksit Bharat much before 2047. If you're a student of history like me, you will recall that before the advent of the East India Company, a Jagat Seth sitting in Calcutta could transfer the entire proceeds of the East India Company to the UK, because India's contribution to the global economy at that stage was about 25% of global GDP. And then we had 190 years of colonial domination. I don't want to go into that. It's a subject which I don't like to carp on, because it's self-evident. We came down from 25% of global GDP to less than 2%. Today, that process is being reversed. So we are not only reclaiming our civilizational heritage, the pride of place, but more than that, I think you guys, and I mean each one of you, are taking it to new heights so that the shape of India, much before 2047, and I say that with conviction, will not only be one of the largest economies in the world. I don't know, Amitabh, what our GDP will be. I've seen figures, $40 trillion by 2040, etc. I don't want to speculate. But you see that happening in the midst of it. So a very warm welcome to all of you. This is designed as an interactive session. I normally, because I made the transition from being a civil servant to a politician, speak a little longer. Rajiv also has not been able to resist that temptation, but we want to hear from him. After that, I'll be inviting some of you who have agreed to come here and share your experiences. Others are a little shy and want to give bites outside, whichever way you want it. But I think we have a rich, interactive segment ahead, and then some good food. So thank you very much for giving me a patient hearing. God bless all of you. Thank you.
Let me, along with my senior colleague Hardeep Puri ji, also welcome all of you to this Vishesh Sampark, as we call it. It is our attempt to reach out to people such as yourself and share our thoughts and in turn hear from you as well. Hardeep will obviously put me under some pressure by saying that I shouldn't speak too long. So, so I heard it that way, so I'll certainly not speak for too long, but I want to speak to you about transformation and what the last 10 years has meant for our country. I have been a few decades around the block. I've spent about 3.5 decades in tech, and I have been through many of the ups and downs and the cycles of the tech ecosystem in India for several years and decades. And I can certainly today tell you with confidence, not because I'm in the Council of Ministers or I'm part of Team Modi, but as far as this audience goes and as far as the technology and innovation ecosystem goes, we are at a point in the history of our nation that has never been like this ever before. This is certainly the most exciting time for anybody in tech, anybody who is even a remote stakeholder in tech, an innovator. This is certainly the most innovative and exciting time for all of us, and I will certainly try and lay out why that is so. You have heard from Hardeep, and you obviously read and you observed that the last 10 years have seen significant transformation in governance of a country that once was described as a dysfunctional democracy, a country that had this was the narrative about India for several decades, and I have been to many so-called international seminars where they bandied about this Indian democracy versus the Chinese system and kept making the argument that the Chinese system is the only one that would deliver for the people. And we have proved in the last 10 years, Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji has shown emphatically that we can be a democracy and we can be a very, very performing economy at the same time. So governance, economy, national security, infrastructure, you've seen it, you've heard about it, so I will not touch on those topics. But certainly the area of innovation and technology is an area that I would certainly like to talk to you about what the last 10 years has meant and what I think the next 5 years is going to look like or the next 10 years are going to look like. 2014, for those of you, many of you were not in tech at that time, we were essentially a digital economy that was about 4% of the GDP. We were essentially the back office to the world, IT, yes, and we were doing a fine job of that. And we had a fairly reasonable set of global franchises and companies that had been built. The last 10 years has seen an expansion of our footprint in the digital economy like never before. And I can safely say today, and I'm sure many of you would agree, that the Indian flag is today planted on almost every segment of the digital innovation economy that today represents innovation and technology around the world. Whether it is AI, whether it is semiconductor, whether it is electronics, whether it is microelectronics, whether it is high-performance computing, whether it is the future of the internet, whether it's telecom, whether it's D2C and the next innovation in that area. There is an Indian flag, or there are Indian flags planted almost in every segment. And I want at this stage to tell you a small story, an anecdote. Very soon after I was given this opportunity to serve as a minister, our Prime Minister sent me off on a mission to the UK, leading a delegation of 30 startups, not MPs. And some of you are in this audience, and I landed in London and the High Commissioner received me and said, sir, there are 7 ministers of the British government that want to meet you. And I was frankly taken aback. I thought maybe being a minister gives me this kind of global recognition and fame. And I was pretty chuffed about it. And then as I drove to the hotel, the High Commissioner clarified, no, it's not to meet you, actually it's to meet the startups. So anyway, the next 2 days, the 7 ministers came, met these various startups, the youngsters that I was accompanying. And the last day was a Sunday. We had breakfast with the then Prime Minister Boris Johnson. And these 30 young Indians, absolutely brilliant, inspiring. And about 30 minutes into the breakfast, he took me to the side and he held my hand and said, "What does your Prime Minister Narendra Modi ji feed your youngsters? What is this magic potion that he is feeding them?" So I said, "Nothing. He has not done anything. He has basically empowered them and got the government to step out of the way." And that is, in a lot of ways, the global recognition for Indian innovation and Indian talent. That is the normal today. It wasn't the case before that, I can assure you. I've been, like I said, a techie for many, many years, and this was not the case. And now the respect for the global respect for Indian innovation, the global respect for Indian talent, and the global respect for the Indian leadership of all things tech that is bound to come in the coming years is a real new normal. We were 4.5% of GDP in 2014. We are 12% of GDP today, the digital economy, and we will be a fifth of the GDP by 2026-27. The digital economy in India today is growing at 2.8x the regular GDP. This is the contribution of innovation. This is the consequence of the Prime Minister's vision. And early on in 2015, his vision of digital India that he really doubled down on and said, this is something that we are going to do, not just for improving governance, but to create opportunities for our young Indians and expand our economy. And today, his vision of 2015 has played itself out and is evident for everybody. So a fifth of our economy will be digital economy in 27, by 26-27. We are already the fastest growing digital economy in the world. And certainly it is clear that we are aiming for $1 trillion digital economy by 27-28. We were aiming for that in 26-27, but that has been moved out by a year for many reasons, including the COVID. What is the, and I want to share a couple of other anecdotes of these last 10 years just to share with you. Electronics manufacturing, again a segment that was ignored for many, many years, and in 2014, I don't know how many of you are aware, but certainly Pankaj is aware of this, that almost 80% of our mobile phones consumed in India were imported. And it was one of the fastest growing imports after hydrocarbon and petroleum. And here we are in 2024 today, not just manufacturing almost 100% of all mobile phones consumed in India, but exporting over 110,000 crores of Samsung and Apple phones made in India to the rest of the world. This is another manifestation of the transformation and clearly a result of the PLI, visionary PLI schemes that the Prime Minister has put into place. Manufacturing, Tim Cook, when he came and met me, Apple CEO, he said, the only reason that Apple could ramp up so rapidly from 2021 to 2023 so quickly and diversify their manufacturing from China was the work that the Prime Minister had done for the years leading up to 2020. And that is why today Apple and larger manufacturers like that look at India as a very significant hub in the GVCs that are today fast changing in the post-COVID world. I will quickly end by talking a little bit about the coming 5 years, and I'll give you cues about what the Prime Minister is thinking. In the last budget, he has announced a 1 lakh crore, that is $12 billion, as seed capital into a research and innovation fund. That will go to finance, R&D, finance and invest in the next wave of startups, including in deep tech and AI and things like that. He has announced a 20,000 crore India AI mission, which will include creating the AI compute infrastructure that will be available for the next wave of AI startups in India. He has also announced, before the elections were announced, he has also announced an additional semiconductor plan, which will be in addition to the $10 billion that he announced, which is going to create further catalyze the growth of the semiconductor ecosystem. I'll just end by quickly giving you a broad idea of what the tech economy is going to look like in the coming 5 to 7 years. The Prime Minister is very, very keen to accelerate this even further, invest in this further, both public and private capital to flow to the digital space and the digital economy space. And the areas of focus are clearly electronics and microelectronics, artificial intelligence, telecom, high performance computing, semiconductors, cyber security, the future of the internet, and also things like automotive and EV. So there is a whole vision that our Prime Minister has in terms of taking this whole tech innovation and digital economy forward. And I think if he thought that the last 10 years were exciting, I think the next 10 years are going to be even more exciting. I'll leave it at that. Thank you again for being here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rajiv. We have a very interesting group of people here. I would like to request those whom I'm going to invite to come here and share with us the essence of your experience and what you would like to see in the next 5 years. I have only one thing to add to what Rajiv and I have said. Let's not take any of this for granted, because the transformation that has been effected between 2014 and today is on a self-generating momentum, but with some mistakes made here and there, it could very easily be reversed also. So the political process is actually very important, because you must ensure that in the midst of global turbulence, certainly you have a leadership in India which is able to navigate through that. Equally, I don't know what's going to happen to the global economy, I don't know what's going to happen to supply chains, but you must develop not only an indigenous capacity, but contribute for the world. My concept of Atmanirbharta is not what you and I think, other people think. It is to make India produce for the world, and that's where you guys come in. So I'm going to request you to come one after the other. We have enough time, but I don't want to delay the food too much. Speak about 2 or 3 minutes. If you really feel the urge to speak more than 3 minutes, I'm sure you'll have something really worthwhile to say, and that's why you're taking more than 3 minutes. But can I start with Pankaj Mohindru-ji? I don't think you need any introduction. Chairman of ICEA, Indian Cellular Association. You have the floor, sir.
Honorable Hardeep ji, Honorable Lakshmi ji, stalwarts of the industry like Saurabh ji, our beloved Amitabh Khan, and above all the great entrepreneurs we have here, which is actually driving us. I must tell you, I just remembered something. Hello, can you hear me? In 2012, we launched something called the MSIPS, which was in the DIT that time, Department of Information Technology. And we were running around the world, requesting people, invest. And we were met with tremendous skepticism, because they said, how do you trust this thing? Till this gentleman is not here today, he said to apna personal check kaat ke de mujhe. If you believe this, give me a check, blank check, and if my disbursement doesn't come, I'll present that check. Such was the skepticism. Now, today I have not informed the Honorable Minister yet. The spec scheme and the scheme for components is not yet out yet. We signed up a 2,000 crore investment today in a pioneering industry, which is PCB, which is a core foundational industry. And I was a little hesitant, because I said it's coming. He said, nahi, hame pura vishwas hai, ye ho jayega. So this is the change. This is the change which has happened. See, the story of mobile phones, what has happened in India is a very inspiring story. It's 2014, we were on ground zero at the time. From there, we have grown about 2,100%. We are producing about more than 4 lakh crores worth of phones. Increase is about 21 times. Electronics, we have grown about 400%. Electronics is now $150 million. Electronics was a sector which was completely... Today, Sunil Vachhani is here. We have a lot of listed companies. The enthusiasm is red hot. The valuations we are getting are red hot. In fact, I told the Foxconn chairman, tongue in cheek, that I feel a little sorry that you are listed in Taiwan. If you had been listed in India, because you are in electronics, you would have been valued at about not $50 billion, maybe $200 billion. That's the enthusiasm in this country. So I was asked that what is the difference? What has happened? What is the change? So I told him there's this movie Veer Zara in which the lead actor Zara Hayat, she's going to get married in a very rich, wealthy, influential family. But she comes to her mother and says that, Mom, does Papa aapko pyar karte hain? She says, of course, he loves me. Is he ready to give his life for you? I said, what a silly question. What a silly question. She said, but I know somebody who's ready to give his life for me. And so she switches side. That is the difference, the passion which we have seen with which, and that is, all pervasive. Of course, there are skeptics also, but the passion is very, very pulsating. And I think that is making a difference. It's certainly making a difference to our industry. So what happened? Why did this huge growth happen? 3 moments in the history in the last 10 years. Very courageous decisions were taken. First, the differential duty, right? Everybody said we are ITA 1, blah, 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 blah. And, there's no hope. The differential duty was instituted. Second was that when the GST was coming, we had to get out of that. But, the basic customs duty could not be imposed. And that is a decision which was taken that no, we will pull out mobile phones from ITA 1. Big decision. And Hardeep ji will understand that what a big decision it is, having been a diplomat all his life. And the third was the PNP. I pray regularly that the best decision taken by the government was to have Amitabh ji lead that task force. Because he had the courage to take this forward. The glue which brought everybody together. Bureaucracy is not, it's not an easy animal, And has the transformation happened? No. Okay, now the flip side, what Hardeep ji said. So I have a license to tell you that koi chand mein kuch daag hai, aage kya dekhna hai humne. So I think if you see that what are the greatest challenges which we have, I think one is that we have not been able to rein in our enforcement agencies, whether it is GST or DRI or Enforcement Directorate. That is causing a lot of angst. It is hurting our enthusiasm. It is hurting our motivation. So that is something which we need to fix very quickly. The second is our cost of capital. That's a very serious disability. And it is a permanent disability. The third big disability is that China has created an infrastructure where they have a permanent advantage because they kept the digital companies from the rest of the world out. So they built this massive, product nation based on what they are able to deliver to their brands based on this. I'll circulate a paper on that, it is a little more detailed. And the fourth is that we've not been able to build Indian champion companies so far. I think that is really important because, 10 years back the question was who's manufacturing in India. Now the question is who is not manufacturing in India, right? So the last man standing was Google. We have Google. Is Google there? I see Rajan is there, but Is there anybody from Google here? Obviously, he is not here. So the last man standing was Google. They are on board now. So there's every single manufacturer in the world is manufacturing it. So what is it that, single thing, if I want to ask from the government, one single thing, right? Not a big vision paper or something, that is, trust us. That's all. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Let me just say that the 4 challenges that you've listed, those are very widely shared. I mean, the cost of capital, it's not tech industry specific. I mean, it's something that would be coming across. Producing champions, etc. Ensuring that the actions of the enforcement the agencies are circumscribed. That is very widely understood. And I have absolutely no doubt that when we start our 3rd term and go ahead, all these things will be looked at. But in many ways, once you have the scale, then the cost of capital becomes a relevant factor. Where it makes sense. I mean, if you look at earlier, tax rates were very high, now we are one of the lowest tax rates. And I think the cost of capital, there are ways of doing it. I'm sure people entrusted with those tasks will address them. But thank you very much. Thank you. Now,
Rajan Anandan, I'll request you to come and say a few words.
Honorable Ministers, Mr. Kant, distinguished members of the government, fellow entrepreneurs, investors. First of all, when I was at Google for a long time, so I actually left about 5 years ago, but what can you do? I'm still expected to make sure manufacturing happens. But when I joined Google in 2011, I don't know whether you all know this, ministers, there were 20 million mobile connected smartphones. That was 2012 actually, around 2012. 2014, that number had gone to about 50 million. But they were all on narrowband networks. What's very interesting is if you fast forward to the end of 2023, there were close to 800 million smartphone users. They're all on broadband networks and they consume more data than any other nation on the planet. In fact, mobile data consumption today, if you look at it, actually exceeds both China and the US on mobile combined, right? So that's an extraordinary transformation of a digital ecosystem. But it's not just that, right? We didn't have it. Flipkart was founded in 2007, but by 2012 or 13, there was very little e-commerce. Today we have close to 800 million internet users, 250 million Indians buy products online, 350 million Indians pay online, and we have, without question, the most vibrant, in terms of broad-based innovation ecosystem when it comes to digital India. So, ministers, first thing I'd like to say is, when it comes to the digital ecosystem, Viksit Bharat has already arrived, right? We are the most advanced digital ecosystem in the world, and what's missing now is GDP per capita. So as every year goes by, India's GDP per capita goes up, and you'll see that our addressable markets continue to grow. I think the thing that I'm most excited about that's happened over the last few years, many things have happened over the last decade. Both the ministers, the speaker before me spoke about those. But the thing that I'm most excited about is deregulation in specific, very strategic sectors. Space. 10 years ago, there was one space tech startup. Today has 190 space tech startups. If you had asked me if my firm would invest in an Indian space tech company 3 years ago, I would have said no. Today we have a very exciting company that builds satellites, that's building a traffic system in space. Imagine that. Indian founders launching satellites, launching rockets, building entirely new technologies. Another interesting example, I think Minister Puri talked about this, defense. The number one focus sector that we have as a firm in our early stage business right now is defense. We want to find Indian entrepreneurs who are building for defense. And the list goes on. Sector after sector, we've seen regulatory changes that have really spurred innovation at scale that we haven't seen before. As we go forward over the next 5 years, ministers and all of you in government, we only had one ask. Today, India's R&D spend as a percentage of GDP is 0.7%. China is at 2.5% percentage of GDP, and the US is at 3.5%. It's absolutely fantastic that we have a 1 lakh crore budget to actually promote investments in R&D in sectors like deep tech sectors. But the reality is 0.7% on 3.9 trillion is $25 billion. What we really need by 2030 is 10x that amount. Now we realize that 10xing in 5 or 6 years is a very, very difficult thing. But as we go into the next 5 years, what we're really hopeful is that we'll continue to invest in R&D, which really long term, as we think about how do we get India to be the most innovative, the most entrepreneurial nation on the planet, it's really going to boil down to R&D. Thank you.
I think you've been very polite also. One is that you have a 0.7% R&D on a $3.9 trillion economy. The other guy has got 2.1% or 2.2% on a $19 trillion economy, and 2.5% on a $19 trillion. And the other guy, who's number one, has 3.some% on a $23 trillion economy. So it's the 10x is absolutely necessary. But counter question, R&D has to come from, I keep telling my oil marketing companies, which are now producing 19% of the revenue of the country because of the, particular situation, everyone should come in, private sector, public sector. That's when the R&D cake goes up. But I think you're absolutely on target. And it's not just that we have to do it, I think it's going to happen. Because your success story now on the $25 billion talk now is what will propel and incentivize that exit. Thank you very much.
I just want to add one more thing. The $12 billion is seed capital. If you read the budget, it is not the capital, it is seed capital. So the idea that the Prime Minister has is that 12 billion would effectively mean 100 billion through a combination of other investors and other forms of funding. So this is seed capital, this is not the absolute capital. May I invite Barun Alak of Mama, please?
Honorable Ministers, ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for inviting me here. I represent Hunasa Consumer, which is a product of New India. We come from middle-class families, me and my wife, cousin. In 2016, was the year when Startup India was started, and that's the year when we quit our jobs and decided to start this company. And in just 7 years, we've been able to take the company public. We employ over 10,000 people now. And that's the story of New India. That's what's possible. And I think we've gotten a lot of courage and inspirations from hearing our leaders talk about how the possibilities in New India are just immense. I would like to only focus on one part and one area which I genuinely believe we need to focus on from the next 15 years perspective. And that is employment generation. And that too with a focus on pace, quality and relevance over the next 15 years in that order. When I say pace, at least in the short term, I think what we need is the continued effort that the government has been putting in terms of generation and number of employment that we need to do by focusing on sectors like manufacturing, infrastructure, delivery, services, etc. I think it's very important that in the short term, we are able to add 50 to 100 million new jobs into the economy. The second area is, of course, quality. While currently the focus is on numbers, in the medium term, we also need to become far more quality employers, and that's where focusing on research and development, as we talked about, design, medicine and entrepreneurship is going to help us create much better quality of jobs. In my third request will be focusing on relevance. We talked about AI, we talked about the fact that we still are a large back office for the world. While we focus on capturing AI and capturing the global market of AI, we must also be cognizant that the first impact that AI is going to have is on reducing back office and jobs which require manual discipline, and are jobs which are being done by a lot of India. And if we have to ensure that we are able to overcome that, we need to reskill and focus on our education today, so that 10 to 15 years down the line, when this revolution comes through, our people are actually prepared to take on the new opportunities which get created. So I think those three would be the focus areas that I would request to keep on. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you very much. May I invite Abhiraj Goyal, founder of Urban Company.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, honorable ministers and distinguished guests. My name is Abhiraj Goyal. I'm the founder of Urban Company. This is a company that I started with my co-founder Varun from our living room in 2014. We have very small savings, but a dream to transform the home services sector in India, to create high quality, good jobs with trained service professionals. And today we have over 57,000 high quality and trained service professionals across 62 cities in the country, and every second of the day some service professional is ringing a bell and entering a consumer's home to deliver a reliable service. I want to share two anecdotes along the way where we've been supported extensively by the government. In 2016, when we were still a small and fledgling startup, the then Minister of Skill and Entrepreneurship invited me over to his office. I was a bit surprised, and I went there and he said, "I've studied your model, tell me what is needed to supercharge and scale it up rapidly." I said, "Sir, we're investing heavily in training and quality, but somehow the consumer trust in welcoming a stranger home is still missing." He said, "Don't worry about it. In the next 30 days, if what you're saying is true and you are indeed investing in this training and quality control, we will sign an MOU with you, which is all encompassing, and every service professional on your platform will get an NSDC certification as best in class, and you can put the certification on the app for all consumers to see." As it stands today, all 57,000 service professionals are NSDC certified best in class. They wear the Skill India logo on their t-shirts, and you can see their certificate on the app, which also comes with an insurance. I've also had the privilege of working with several of our colleagues here, along with Minister Vishesh Goyal as part of the National Startup Advisory Council. We've had several sessions which go into details of each point, including how do we raise more domestic capital, how do we thrive incubators in the country, etc. And often those meetings, which are scheduled for a couple of hours, go late into the night. Many of us are tired, but the minister is never tired. And eventually we have to request him that it's time for us to go home because our spouses are waiting. So I think there's an energy and a zeal in the last 10 years that we've seen, which will only unlock India's potential in the coming 10 years. For the next 5 years, my humble submission would be the government is on a fast-track mission of infrastructure development and reforms that should continue, and I am sure India's potential will be unlocked. Thank you very much, Jai.
Thank you. Can I invite Sunil Vachhani, Chairman of Dixon Technologies, and the company that I say is the future Foxconn.
Thank you, Honourable Ministers, Amitabh Kanji, ladies and gentlemen. Just to quickly introduce myself, I'm the Executive Chairman of Dixon Technologies. Dixon, as some of you might know, is one of the largest electronic manufacturing services company in the country, and we manufacture many products like mobile phones, televisions, telecom products, lighting, and many others. And I think there is no doubt in my mind, that this industry, the country, and our company has come a very, very long way. I think the Honorable Minister already talked about this. Remembering a time when we imported almost all the mobile phones that were sold in the country. I think we were importing almost all the electronic products like LED televisions, LED lighting. And you look at 10 years, you look at now, Honorable Minister already talked about it, that probably is the first time in the history that a country has produced almost $100 billion worth of electronic products. Not only that, the category of electronics and mobile phones is the 5th largest category of exports. Honorable Minister, the Josh is so high now that we are looking at almost $100 billion worth of exports of mobile phones alone happening from the country. And I remember someone just asking me recently that what really happened, what was the big change that brought about this massive transformation. So I think there is no doubt in our minds that this was definitely thanks to the very proactive policies of the Government of India, especially our ministry led by our Honorable Dynamic Minister, Shri Chandrasekhar. It was also the huge focus on ease of doing business, and which was personally championed by Shri Amitabh Kanji. But I think the biggest change, according to me, that has happened is the change in the mindset of Indian entrepreneurs. And this happened because of the call that our Honorable Prime Minister gave almost 10 years back, that let's make in India. Let's make India the next hub for manufacturing for the world. And I think this is the biggest change that has happened. So thank you, Honorable Prime Minister, for that. So going forward, you asked for certain suggestions. There has been a lot of talk about, mobile phone manufacturing. That are we really doing manufacturing? What's the value addition in the country? Of course, we know that the value addition is still low, it's only about 20%. But I'm very happy to tell you that if you look at other product categories like LED lighting, televisions, and some other products, the value addition in the country is almost as high as 75%. So sir, I think one of the priorities, if I may suggest, definitely should be the creation of a robust and strong component ecosystem. Maybe a PLI or a combined specs scheme for the component ecosystem. And finally, maybe a call from the Honorable Prime Minister to make India now a products nation, where we not only make our products in India, but we design our products in India. And so today I remember the words of the famous poet Victor Hugo, who said that no power on earth can change an idea that has come, whose time has come. And I think this is India's time, and as our Honorable Prime Minister also said, यही समय है, सही समय और अपना समय. So let's all come together and make India the next hub for manufacturing for the world. Thank you so much.
An idea whose time has come, but this is more than just an idea. This is a nation of 1.4 billion, and that technology transformation is what is catapulting. Thank you very much.
May I invite Vikant Pitti, Ease My Trip. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, honorable ministers. I'm Vikant Pitti, co-founder of a company known as EaseMyTrip.com. We come from a very humble background. I started EaseMyTrip at the age of 16 years along with my brothers. EaseMyTrip as a company, there are so many unique things, but I'll tell you two unique things about EaseMyTrip. One is that we bootstrapped EaseMyTrip to become a unicorn and to list in India in 2021. Second, we have always been profitable since inception. We never made any losses in EaseMyTrip. That is very rare in any consumer tech companies. To speak about Viksit Bharat, that is why I've been called over here. I think specifically it's more like that I've been preaching to the choir because you guys would know everything. But still, I will try my best to speak about it, and I'll present you one very important and very good statistics about it. Back in year 2005, there were 70,000 millennials in India, and it was predicted at that time that India is going to have 250,000 millennials. But as you know that in year 2021, India had 760,000 millennials. So I believe that the adoption of technology and the public infrastructure being laid by the government has made that kind of change, and that is something which has happened with EaseMyTrip also, because till 2015 EaseMyTrip was more focusing on doing the business with the corporates and also with the travel agents and the tour operators. But after 2015, EaseMyTrip has started working with the direct consumers, so because of the digital infrastructure and the digital India initiatives which is being launched by the government. So I would really, I'm very much thankful to the government for that particular initiative. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. May I invite Gaurav, Technical Guruji, to come up and speak, please? The legitimate tech rockstar, please.
Good evening, everyone, honorable ministers. Thanks for this opportunity. To be honest, I believe I am the youngest in the room, and I would not count myself as an innovator or as someone who has a startup, but I would definitely say that I am an IT professional and I consider myself intellectual as well. For me to share my experience over the last few years about how India has transformed as a nation, I would say I have a few stories to share. I still remember it was 1st of July 2015 when Honorable PM Sir announced the Digital India thing. And it clearly clicked that, yeah, this is the time that India is going to transform. At that time, I had just completed my master's from BITS Pilani Mechatronics. And the idea was that why not I share some of my knowledge to the masses in India. Following that, I started this journey of social media in the month of October. And today, combined, I have a following of over 35 million in the entire country. Now it clearly shows the kind of people that we have in the country. People are interested in technology. As a youngster, as someone who is a grown-up, we are clearly witnessing that everyone would want to associate themselves in the field of tech. 2015, Digital India se just pehle 2014, we also had Make in India. And I have been visiting all these smartphone factories pan-India all the time. And what makes me happy is not just the fact that India right now is world's second largest producer in terms of smartphones, but India also happens to be the second largest consumer as well. We all have seen how the changes happened over the past few years, wherein everyone today is having a smartphone, as Rajendra said, and not just a smartphone, but a smartphone which is connected to a very fast internet. For example, Digital India, if you say, the lifestyle of people has changed completely, because in the past, for example, everything you would go out, like today, anyone with just a smartphone can avail so many services from the government, can enjoy a better digital lifestyle, could be maybe using DigiLocker or DigiYatra, and combined all these things, I have seen the country transform. UPI has been a game changer, and I still remember there was a time when someone very learned said that who's going to use digital payments? क्या ठेले वाले के पास में digital payments कर सकते हैं क्या? I mean, today for a fact, I'm really proud to say that India does the most amount of digital payments globally, and it's by a long margin. Not just India, countries like Bhutan, Sri Lanka, Malaysia, Mauritius, Singapore, UAE, they all have adopted the UPI. Just a couple of months ago, I was in Paris and I just felt like I just visited the Eiffel Tower. For that visit, I bought the ticket using UPI just by scanning a QR code. That's the power of UPI. So over the years, we have seen so many developments and how like someone who was not in the rankings in terms of tech, you'd say global scale way. But today, we are either the leaders or just closely following them. It clearly shows the kind of transformation we are experiencing right now as a country. So going forward, I would just request a couple of things that we should really focus on including STEM and the digital literacy from an early age for all the students, not just in the metro cities but also in the villages. It's not just on the government side. I would request all of you, like in your families, in your neighbors, if we just enable these young minds from the early age, they would be well equipped. Because as I just share a line with you, just last week I was at the Google headquarters and I met Mr. Sunil Vachhani, and he said India is well positioned to shape the future of AI. That's coming from Sunil Vachhani. So it's clearly evident in times to come, next 5 years, next 10 years, we'll even dominate in this space. But if we enable the people of India, the young kids of India, like very well equipping them right from the beginning, we would really ensure that we definitely achieve the vision towards Viksit Bharat by the year 2047. And as PM sir said, it's 24/7 for 2047, so we all need to work round the clock. Thank you. Jai Hind.
Thank you very much. While I was listening to these fascinating experience sharing, what struck me is that here we are talking about innovation, entrepreneurial breakthroughs, wealth creation, but you have to sustain that. And I said, don't take anything for granted, because there are alternate, models out there which talk in terms of, redistribution, inheritance tax, etc. So, if you were in a non-democratic thing where the decision making was absolutely, you were sure it was, but you're a democracy. And some of the other alternative also appeals to some people. Say, "Arey, wo banayega to wo Mr. Vachhani, par wo hamare liye bana raha hai, they will redistribute." But let him create. I mean, you talked about per capita, you talked about GDP. Once you take it up, you can take it up. But you have to bring tax rates down for that. You have to incentivize innovation. I mean, our friend here talked about 10x of R&D. Absolutely. And unless that is sustained, you will never be able to reclaim your rightful position. I just thought, because I was listening to a large number of people, but be acutely conscious that there is somewhere lurking in the back the other narrative also.
I just want to respond because Gaurav, you spoke. I have a healthy respect for influencers by and large, generally. Because there are bad influences as well. So I by and large have a good healthy respect for them. But one of the moments when I realized the power of influencers was that when I was on a trip on a pravas to Indore, and the driver turned around and looked at me and said, "Sir, ये जो आप semiconductor में कर रहे हैं ना, बहुत अच्छा कर रहे हैं प्रधानमंत्री." I said, "अरे, how do you know about semiconductor?" मैंने YouTube में वीडियो देखा, टेक्निकल गुरुजी एक्सप्लेन कर रहे थे सेमीकंडक्टर क्या चीज़ है. So all of the articulation that we do in Delhi, finally, there's a great deal of help that people like you do. Thank you, Gaurav.
No, I like that by and large, but we are all talking about the positive guys. There are some guys they're also trying to influence the alternate, the negative narrative, but you didn't mean those guys.
Those are the ones I'm excluding. May I invite Rohan Verma, Map My India, Mapples, share some thoughts. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Sir, Hardeep Sir, Rajiv Sir, for having me. It's a privilege for us at Map My India to be here. We're a product in the last few years. I mean, the company was started by my parents 30 years ago, so they were working hard for fairly long. It's been 20 years for me since I was 19. It's also decently long, but the last 4 years, what this government has done has just unlocked the opportunity in our space of maths and geospatial, and not just for us as a company, but as a country. It's clearly Prime Minister Modi's vision for what maps and geospatial can do. He did this in Gujarat, and he knows what it can do for India. And so in 1 year, 2021, opening maps, geospatial, space and drone, I think he unlocked this trinity of technologies that can take the country into a different orbit. And I remember all the pain that we used to go to with the police at our doorstep saying, we'll shut down and take your servers. I cried at the shoulders of Amitabh Kant sir multiple times during COVID time, and he was the one saying, no, do not shut shop. When the policy came, we were all relieved, and then Rajiv sir gave the inspiration that focus on Atmanirbhar Bharat, focus on digital India. I think clearly we can say that MapMyIndia is a product of this government, forward view on technology and on policy, enabling us to serve the country. I'll just say one thing, sir, as an ask for next 5 years. Like you said, nothing can be taken for granted. So we really wish for continuity the way things have been going. We want to see much more of that. We are part of this. But even East India Company may not be here physically, but Digital East India Company is still here. So we really want to see the government enable Indian companies to do the same in the next 5 years to enable India's growth indigenously, and wish for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. May I invite Rakesh Malik, CEO and co-founder of Verve Semi Microelectronics. This is a semiconductor design company, and for good reasons I'm very excited about this whole space. Rakesh, thank you.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, audience. Let me tell you about my company and my journey. I'm a semiconductor person. So what sir is talking about is the same subject. I tell you an interesting story. 10 years before, people used to know what is semiconductor. Now they know. So I used to say, what do you do? I do chips. I do ICs. I say, potato chips. Okay, fine. Alright, so now it is well known. We know very well that how much deficit we have in terms of import of ICs or semiconductors, which is $24 billion. It's going to grow to $100 billion. We have to cut down. So we have to produce our own design in India, and I'm happy to say that Verve Semi was started in 2017. We have approximately 25 chips, which we developed completely in India. And why it is important to develop these kind of chips in India is because one is security, because those chips have to be secure. Second is to have deficit positive. We have to have export positive for these kind of things. I'm carrying some of the chips done by us. It's almost 10 chips in various applications, starting from metering to various kind of applications here. Almost 10 chips are here. So these chips were completely done by us. Some of them are for metering business, so which is very crucial business for India, because metering, there is hacking, there is malware which is coming from abroad, from China or from anywhere else. So those kind of security is there. We are also helping some of the government organizations to develop chip for space. So this is one area that we have ventured into it, and there we require really the security for our country. So we are going ahead, and I would like to praise our government for introducing various schemes. Especially there are schemes like DLI scheme, design link incentive, product link incentive. Those are the schemes which will make us in the faster path. So I see a lot of change in the last 5 years. Thank you sir, and thank you for calling me here. So with this note, I would like to say that we have to go for Atmanirbhar Bharat, and we have to go ahead with making chips from India, and not only for India but also for exporting to the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I find this truly inspirational. But you know, we've been getting a lot of you cutting-edge rocket science, rock stars in this field. I'm now going to invite somebody who has had a distinguished career, highly decorated person in the Armed Forces, General Atta Hasnain, to come and speak to us a little bit about the transformation in thinking in technology, armed forces, moving from being a buyer's armed forces to a producer's, some of those things. General Saab, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Can you hear me at the back? Okay, thank you so much. Honorable Ministers, Lakshmi ji, Amitabh ji, for the rest of the audience, I am neither an innovator, nor an intellectual, nor an IT professional. I'm a soldier. What am I doing here? Let me talk to you about a domain which no one here is qualified to talk about. Let me make you recall, in the year 1999, the state of Odisha was hit by a major cyclone. Would you recall how many fatalities there were? 10,000 people died. 10,000 people died. Last year, and around the 3rd of June, a similar cyclone hit the state of Gujarat, the coastline there. Would you hazard a guess what were the fatalities? Zero. Not one fatality. Why did it happen? Do you know that this current government developed a technology called the Common Alerting Protocol? Sometimes you receive messages in your phone and you don't realize where they're coming from. We generated 32 million messages to the public in Gujarat. 32 million messages, telling them where exactly the cyclone is going to hit, where will be the landfall, and therefore what precautions they should take. And because of that, not a single life was lost. This technology was developed in the last 3 years under a program called the Common Alerting Protocol. In the near future, as we go along, you are going to find these kind of alerts coming to you regularly. Sometimes you get them late because there's a queuing up of SMSs, but as we go along, you will find something called a cell broadcast which will come to you regularly. Why I'm telling you this is, ladies and gentlemen, you may keep progressing, India may keep progressing, but climate change is going to affect you. Right? Climate change is there, it's a part of national security, and it will hit you very badly. You have to be preparing yourself all the time to make sure of that. On the same breath, since I am the member of the National Disaster Management Authority, let me tell you what you need to be aware of as far as disasters is concerned, because it can set you back in your businesses and your progress and everything if you don't cater for disasters. Please look up on the websites, on the NDMA website, or just Google it. Look up the Prime Minister's 10-point program. The 10-point program, which is now a mantra around the world on disaster management. This is something which our Prime Minister has given the nation. And as a result of that, what happened last year? When an earthquake struck Turkey, which was the first nation of the world which reached Turkey with this rescue effort? It is none other than India. Our field ambulance hospital, the parachute field ambulance hospital from Agra, our NDRF were there. And you would be happy to know they didn't even have to ask for diesel and petrol from the Turkish government. The ladies sitting here in the audience, you should know that as a part of the 10-point program, there's one simple point, that in disaster, gender sensitivity is one of the most important things. And do you know that when our rescue effort went to Turkey, 6 lady doctors accompanied the hospital which went there. The maximum number of people who were treated was by India. So I thought this is a domain which you may not know about, but if we have made huge strides, India has made huge strides in this, and with Amitabh ji sitting here, let me just tell you, as a part of the G20 process, we had 12 verticals, but we introduced the 13th vertical in India on disaster risk resilience. 3 meetings were held here under his leadership at this time, and we have become now in the world considered as the leaders in the issues of disaster risk financing, particularly. We have a huge quantum of money which has been given by the 15th Finance Commission primarily for mitigation of disasters. And since the Honorable Minister insisted that I speak about defense infrastructure, let me tell you as a last bit, in 2014, when the government came, there was a government understanding that India needed 150,000 to 200,000 crores to modernize its armed forces. We did not have the means to buy this from within the country. All this 200,000 crores would have gone outside the country. That's when the program of Atmanirbharta started. Make in India started. And today you'll be happy to know that out of the 150,000 crore rupees which is there deployable for purchase of equipment for modernization, this year's budget, 75% of that, almost 100,000 crores, is devoted purely for purchase from within India. So all those who are the entrepreneurs, the startups, you can look forward to this. This is something which is going to continue transforming you and India. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you, General Saab. I was sure that, you will add not only a new perspective, but a very encouraging one. Because what happens if you take take any amount of money, and when I talk about our capital expenditure, all these large amounts, it's so easy. You place orders on someone else. You're generating economic activity there. You are just a buyer. Now you're not only producing, you're adding to economic activity here, and as for many examples cited, you're exporting. So there's been a real reversal of roles in that way, and that's the major transformation. Thank you very much. What I would now like to do, if I have, Rajiv has encouraged me on that as well, we will open the floor and we'll put mics around if some of you want to ask questions or make short comments, and we will have that open for 10-15 minutes. I'm being given a list. Yeah. Would you like to speak from there or here? Now, can I believe we already have generated some interest. May I invite Shri R. Ramakrishnan ji, co-founder and chairman of Inverse AI.
Pranam to Honorable Minister Puri ji and Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji. A lot of data numbers has been thrown at us. But I am going to tell a very small story, a very powerful story, simply a powerful story. In the month of December, 10th of December to be precise, we get a call from Honorable Rajiv Chandrasekhar ji's office that there is a global conference, global partnership on artificial intelligence, GPay, and you are invited to be part of that cohort, and you got to meet Honorable Prime Minister and the whole team. And just 2 days before the event, we prepare, go, pitch present. Honorable Prime Minister gives us a solid 7-8 minutes time, and where we present the generative AI startup that's being built grounds up. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the story is not about this startup. The story is about this, the founders of the startup. The founders of the startup are two 10-year young boys, Anay and Abir, who start the startup grounds up from Nagpur. And Honorable Rajiv ji encourages them, meets them, asks a bunch of questions. And friends, the most interesting part of the story is where Bharat is heading now. This startup is now part of a cohort of NVIDIA's growth program. This startup has about 100 AI ML professionals working from Nagpur and Silicon Valley. This is, my dear friends, the encouragement that you get at a startup. This is unbelievable. This is unparalleled. I've invested in many startups myself. Right? It would have been very difficult for me to sort of write a check for a startup, a 10-year-old startup, right? So this is Bharat, my dear friends. Thank you so very much.
Thank you very much. I think, how can I put it? It's truly inspirational. And thank you very much for sharing this with us. I will come to you, ma'am, in a minute. We have a friend of mine here, Shri Deepinder Goyal of Zomato. Can I request you to say a few words here, whichever way you want to? You all know this gentleman. I don't think he needs any introduction.
Thank you, sir. I'm being put on the spot, but
No, you're not being put on the spot. The spotlight is on you, but you have the whole.
So I would say that I started Zomato 16 years ago in 2008, and my dad at that time told me, "Janta hai tera baap kaun hai?" And his point was that you can't do a startup, right? And so I come from a small town in Punjab. That's the background. But over the last 16 years, I think a lot has changed, especially over the last 7, 8, 10 years as well. As Rajiv ji said, the government has really gotten out of the way, and thank you so much for that. And I hope that actually continues in good ways going forward. Thank you.
And as I said, the best is yet to come. So,
Ministers, Mr. Khan, I represent the Indian Venture Capital and Private Equity Industry Association, and I'm head of strategy of Everstone Group. So I'm wearing dual hats, and for the entrepreneurs whose fathers are asking, "Tumhara baap kaun hai?" we try to be their backbone and reduce the cost of capital and help with GDP growth. No, I was referring to it. But it's true, because without funding, a lot of the entrepreneurs wouldn't be able to achieve what they've achieved, and our single point agenda is to get more and more investments into the country. And in the last few years, with the help of the government, the industry's grown manifolds. We put in $230 million in the last 5 years, and for every $1 million that we put in the industry, it creates about $3.5 million of revenue and 47 jobs. That's the importance of this industry. We're not only the third largest startup ecosystem in the world, but we're also the third largest in terms of investments coming into the country from this particular sector. I also wear the hat of being the head of strategy for Everstone, which has the largest climate impact fund not only in the country but in the region. And so that fund was formed, the backbone again for it was a funding that came through the Government of India, through the National Investment and Infrastructure Fund, which is a fund of funds. And at that time, and today it's the largest fund in the country, but at that time we were just not getting the climate impact investing. The $100 million plus that the government of India put, on the back of it, we raised a $750 million fund. As you know, the future for the country to achieve net zero, which Mr. Kant also talked about, we need trillions of dollars of investment into climate. And the one ask is, again, the government backing for supporting this extremely initiative. And when we see on the venture side the kind of innovations that coming out of India, what they really need is that funding support. And for that, I think we need that backing from the government, because the G2G initiative on this of creating either a green bank or a fund of fund, which supported us, that will catapult the investments in the country, in the sector, and the innovations that are required for India to be the market leader in this segment in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I think we are very rich, but before we adjourn for dinner, for which you'll have to step up, I'm going to invite Ravani Bedi of Magica. She's somebody who works with women entrepreneurs across the spectrum, not just technology and finance. So Ravani, come and say a few words to us to show where the youngest of the young generation are heading.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting all of us here. It's wonderful to have you all. Can I have the number? Thank you so much for inviting me here. It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much. I'm a simple girl who works with my mother, and we have a platform where we support women MSMEs. And just by the testimony of my mother's hard work and sheer determination, in 2019 we had around 8,900 odd women MSMEs associated with us. And due to the government's initiative, at the moment we have 1.57 lakh women MSMEs associated, just in a matter of 5 years. And this is all because of the government's initiatives, Viksit Bharat scheme, Make in India, and the proud face that we have of all these MSMEs that we have. I can see my members cheering for me at the back and recording me. So girls, more power to you all. My journey, my success is in their success. So all the Magica members, if we can have a huge round of applause for all of us and all the women who are trying to pay it. Thank you so much, sir.
Look, when there's something as intellectually stimulating, diverse, experience sharing, one hates to bring it to an end, and I'm not in the position of going for dinner or inviting you to go for dinner without asking you once again, are there any of you who desperately feel the urge? I'll be able to take one, all right, I'll take more, provided you speak just for 1 or 2 minutes each. So I'm sending a mic around there. Okay, guys. Yeah.
Hi, Honorable Ministers. Hi, Amitabh Kantji. And thank you so much, sir, for inviting us here. So, my story is that I was sitting in London in 2014. And as soon as, I'm not just saying this because I'm here, but as soon as the Modi government got elected, me and my wife, both our minds started ticking and saying that, listen, अब वापस अपने देश जाना है, वापस हिंदुस्तान जाना है. 2015 is actually when we made the move back, and looking at our idols, Deepinder, Zomato, and the Bansals from Flipkart, they inspired us a lot to come back. So my wife had just completed her PhD from Oxford. So she then came here and joined Niti Aayog under Mr. Amitabh Kant, and I came and started my entrepreneurial journey. Now it's been 9 years, and then we've sort of incubated 2 unicorns, and we are now empowering 1 million SMEs, and we are essentially working with NHAI. They contract 30,000 contractors, and we are the largest suppliers of steel and bitumen to them. So one thing about the government, I think the government has been quite unpredictable at times, and then we realized only after a few months that, that those policies are actually good. One was demonetization, and one policy that worked against us was, the edit date of 13 May 2022, when you decided to do the wheat ban, and that time, we had a decent amount of exposure, and I remember not sleeping for about 7 nights straight, how to counter that. But yeah, so I think what you set up for the next 5, 7, 10 years, and in fact even 20 years, is the fact that we have a large array, large space to play in, and just the digitization that is taking place in India is outstanding. Not only the consumers, the SMEs, everyone is now latching onto the Digital India initiative. Manufacture in India, has helped us quite a bit. We employ close to 2,000 people in the head office and 5,000 people in our manufacturing plants. So so manufacture in India has been a great boom for us, and we are actually exporting a decent amount to the global countries as well. So thank you so much for that.
No, thank you very much. And this is just the beginning. The lady here, the lady in the sari here, yeah. No, that's just the beginning. So I mean, I know what the state of being in the UK is just now, so I don't want to say more of that. I think many more people are going to come this way. So, if you want to give a bite to all of you, that applies to all of you. There are many channels here, there are many agencies here, they'd be happy to take your bite outside with the selfie or otherwise, because I think this kind of experience sharing then gets widely disseminated. Ma'am, you have the floor.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for giving me this opportunity. I'm only here because of my husband, who is an ex-army officer and is now heading manufacturing and association for the IT industry. And I generally work with the war widows, war orphans, and ex-servicemen. My only ask here for everyone present in the audience and the honorable ministers is, as the sir said, कि क्या कोई है जो आपके लिए जान दे सकता है? Yes, ex-servicemen. Because on one of my tweets, somebody mentioned, what do soldiers do? They just live off their pensions and work as security guards. And that had hit me very, very badly. So please be more open to ex-servicemen, and they'll be the one giving that chance.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I can share a personal experience. When I finished with 39 years in the government, and I thought I was now going to become an entrepreneur, for a while I actually nearly set up a portal where I wanted to employ ex-servicemen, because they retire very young and they have fantastic experience, engineering skill, basic work, that is required in keeping an urban space. And I put together a team also, I spent some money also, but lo and behold, then I went from bureaucracy into this other profession. So I'm sure we'll be happy to put our heads together to work on some of those ideas. Thank you very much. Yes, please. Identify yourself also, please.
I'm Neha Rai, Namaste. I lead strategy for Hewlett Packard Enterprises. We recently announced our Make in India plan, and we've started rolling out the first global manufacturer for servers in India. And I would want to share my personal experience of how these dialogues have helped, and I think that's what differentiates it. Our global leadership was always iffy around making in India. Honorable Minister Reshna actually took the time, met our global CEO in the US headquarters, and convinced him that the world is coming to India, what's stopping? So that's what made clicked it for us. Obviously, the PLI 2.0 and the regular dialogue that we had with the government. This is something that we should continue, and I look forward to the next 5 years.
Thank you very much, ma'am. I'm going to take just one or two more, the gentleman here, and then all of you will have an opportunity to give bites to them, and that will go out on social media also. Please.
Honorable Ministers and distinguished guests, I would just like to share my story with you. I represent a company called Sahasra Group of Companies. Sahasra means, it's a Sanskrit word, means millennium. So we started this company in 2000. For the first 10, 12, 14 years, we continued to remain small. But when the new government came in, the Modi government came in, we suddenly saw that there was a change, a visible change in the approach of the government. And from, everybody used to tell us that you will continue to remain in electronic manufacturing. But ever since the Modi government came to power, we started to see a visible change and things started to happen. So we grew from a small company to medium company. Fast forwarding into 2020, thanks to the innovative schemes that Government of India brought in, we invested in a new startup for semiconductor manufacturing, and we are the first company who has started semiconductor packaging in memories.